Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Geography Trivia Night, part of the Geo Night celebrations that are happening all around the world today. My name is Ben Woodward, and I'm currently studying geography at the University of Waterloo.
My name is Jerry Sun, and I'm currently studying environmental science at the University of California, Berkeley.
Hi, everyone. My name is Malhar. I'm a second-year student at the University of Toronto, and I'm studying international relations and political science.
And we are going to be your hosts for this event. We are all former members of teams Canada has sent to the International Geography Olympiad, which is an international geography competition for 16 to 19-year-olds organized by the International Geographical Union. We are super excited for a fun night of trivia ahead. Now we're just going to give everyone a few minutes to join us and settle in. But while we're doing that, I've thrown a lot of terms out there like Geo Night and Geography Olympiad that many of you may not be familiar with. So I'll speak to those for a moment. Geo Night, or the International Night of Geography, is an annual worldwide celebration of geography. It is organized by the International Geographical Union and EU Geo, and 35 countries are holding events to celebrate this year. This is Canada's first time participating in Geo Night, so we are excited that we are represented at the larger celebration. Another initiative that the IGU helps coordinate is the International Geography Olympiad, or IGO. IGO is an international geography competition for students aged 16 through 19. Each of the 43 participating countries select 4 students to represent them at the international level. Malhar, Jerry, and I are all past members of Canada's teams at IGO. Now, we know that many of you here tonight are either in high school or know someone who is. So here's just a short primer on how the qualification works for those interested. And after that, we'll move right into the trivia night. As with all countries, Canada selects its teams of 4 through a national competition. Our national competition is referred to as Level 3 of the Canadian Geographic Challenge. This competition is open to all students aged 16 through 19 who haven't started post-secondary. And through the generous support of the RCGS, it is free to participate in. This year's competition is now in its final rounds, but we encourage people to look into registering for the competition next year. For more information on Canada's qualifier for IGO, visit challenge.canadiangeographic.ca. And lastly, we'd like to touch on a more somber note before we start. Many of you have heard the news of the passing of His Royal Highness Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, earlier today. Prince Philip was a very important figure to Canada and to the RCGS. Prince Philip made over 70 appearances in Canada over his lifetime and was also an early figure in the environmental movement, acknowledging the realities of global warming and the greenhouse effect as early as 1982. The RCGS was deeply saddened when they received the news earlier today, as were the 3 of us. So now we'll get started with the trivia night. So I'll just go over some rules quickly in terms of how it'll work. There are going to be 4 rounds of questions, and additionally, there'll be 2 special Dutch auction questions, and we'll explain those later in the night. Some of the rounds will have a special theme or format, so be sure to pay close attention to the instructions for each round so that you know how to answer the questions in that round. Either during or after the rounds, we'll be sharing the correct answers with everyone, so be sure to grab a notepad and a writing utensil before we get started to write your answers down as we go and tally up your score at the end of each round. And of course, we're all just here for a fun night of trivia, so we'll be running this on the honor system. We kindly ask that you don't Google the answers during the trivia night, and we especially encourage you to not put your answers in the YouTube or the Facebook chats so that everybody has a chance to answer the questions. Also, we do want to hear from you. Please introduce yourself in the chat, come up with a fun team name, tell us what city or country you're joining us from. And of course, for some lighthearted competition, as we do at all of our trivia nights, feel free to put your scores in the chat at the end of each round. So with that said, I'll give everyone a couple of seconds to get comfortable, grab some paper, and we'll move right along into round 1. Okay, so round one is all about geography superlatives. The largest, smallest, longest, tallest. Every question and answer has something to do with a notable superlative-related geography, statistic, or fact. This round was actually written by Jack Chang, also a former member of Team Canada. He kindly put together this round for us, but unfortunately, he cannot be here tonight. So I'll be reading this round instead, and a big thank you to Jack for putting these questions together. Once again, we ask you to jot down your answers on paper and do not put them in the Facebook or the YouTube chats because we will be taking up and tallying our scores at the end of every round. So without further ado, let's get started. Question 1. Standing at 828 meters, what is the tallest building in the world? During Ramadan, people living at the top of this building must wait an additional 3 minutes for sunset to break their fast. We'll give everyone 30 seconds to answer the question. And there's absolutely no penalty for wrong answers. So even if you have a guess, just pencil it down on your sheet. And that's 30 seconds, so we'll move on to the next question. Question 2. Canada's only confirmed F5 tornado occurred in the town of Ely. In which province can you find the Ely? So once again, 30 seconds for that question. Question 3. Due to its famous Catatumbo lightning, this South American lake experiences the highest frequency of lightning strikes in the world at 250 flashes per square kilometer per year. So once again, we are looking for the name of the lake. Question 4. Canada's highest temperature was recorded in Midale and Yellowgrass, Saskatchewan. What was the temperature? Moving right along to question 5. Hurricane Iota, 2020's strongest hurricane, made landfall in which Central American country? You have 30 seconds. And next question, question 6. This one's a true or false. Wellington is the most populous city in New Zealand. True or false? Question 7. Some locations in this desert record an average of only 1 millimeter of precipitation per year, making it the driest desert outside of Antarctica. Again, we're looking for the name of the desert. 30 seconds. Question 8. What is the smallest country by area and population located outside of Europe? Question 9. At an average of 335 centimeters per year, which Canadian provincial capital receives the most snowfall on average? Once again, we're looking for a provincial capital. And our last question of the round. What is the tallest mountain outside of Asia? I'll give everyone a few more seconds and then I'll show the answers for this round. Okay, I hope you all enjoyed that round as much as I did, and here are your answers. So for question 1, the Burj Khalifa in Dubai is the tallest building in the world right now. And by the way, as I go through these, feel free to tally up your score, even post your score in the chat if you'd like. So for question 2, Eli is in Manitoba. For number 3, you can find the Catatumbo lightning at Lake Maracaibo, which is in Venezuela. For question 4, Canada's highest recorded temperature is 45 degrees Celsius, or if you'd like, 113 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you answered in Kelvin, you can do the math on that one. For question 5, Hurricane Iota made landfall in Nicaragua. For 6, that statement is actually false. Auckland is New Zealand's largest city, even though Wellington is its capital. For number 7, the Atacama Desert is the driest place outside of Antarctica. However, the McMurdo Dry Valleys in Antarctica haven't had any precipitation in approximately 2 million years. So those are the driest place on Earth. For number 8, Nauru is the smallest country outside of Europe in terms of both population and Asia. That, of course, is in Oceania. For number 9, St. John's is the capital of Newfoundland and Labrador, is not only the snowiest provincial capital, but it's actually the snowiest city in Canada. And lastly, for question 10, Aconcagua is the highest mountain outside of Asia at 6,962 meters in height. So with that said, again, tally up your scores, put those in the chat, and we're going to pass it off to Jerry, who will take us through round 2.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you, Ben. Now we'll be moving on to the next round of this trivia night, which will be a trip around the world. So the trivia questions in this section follow a specific pattern. So the last letter of the answer is also going to be the first letter of the next answer. So for example, if the answer is apple, which ends in an E, the next trivia answer will start with an E. So that will help you narrow down some ambiguities. I'll also be revealing the answer right after the question so that if you do not get the question, it won't negatively affect the rest of your round. So with that said, let's move on to question 1. So this island in the Mediterranean Sea is home to the Nuraghe monuments. And as with the first round, we're going to have 30 seconds to answer. You can find the Nuraghe monuments in Sardinia. Sardinia. So the answer to our next question will start with an A. So let's go ahead and move on to question 2. This European country is one of the few countries in the world without a McDonald's. And the answer is Albania. This European country, Albania, is the only European country that both begins with an A and is without a McDonald's. So the answer to our next question will also start with an A. This Central Asian capital city only allows white cars on its roads. In 2017, the president of Turkmenistan banned all other colors of cars in its capital city, Ashgabat. So the answer to our next question will start with a T. And let's move on to question 4. 9 different countries once claimed a piece of this Chinese city. And the answer is Tianjin. Britain, France, Germany, Russia, United States, Japan, Italy, Austria-Hungary, and Belgium once had a claim in this city. So our next question will start with an N. And let's go ahead and move on to question 5. The largest city in this Australian state makes up almost 65% of its total population. So here we're looking for the state of Australia, not the city. Sydney makes up almost 65% of the population in New South Wales. Our next question will begin with an S. Let's move on to question 6. This Namibian national park is famous for the large number of shipwrecks on its beaches. And the answer is Skeleton Coast National Park. And so our next question answer will begin with a K. So let's go ahead and move on to question 7. This African country's flags features the Maasai shield and spears. And the answer is Kenya. Kenya's flags feature the Maasai spears and shields. And we're going to go on to question 8. This mountain range is home to 99% of the world's tropical glaciers. And this answer will begin with an A. And the answer is the Andes Mountains. The Andes Mountains. And so our next question will also start with an S. Moving on to question 9. This country is South America's smallest, but is still 4 times the size of its former colonial ruler. And the answer is Suriname. Suriname is 4 times the size of the Netherlands, its former colonial ruler. And our final question of the round will begin with an E. This Canadian provincial capital has the highest area of parkland per person. And the answer is Edmonton. Edmonton. And so that concludes all of our questions for round 2. So tally up your scores, share those in the chat, and I'm going to pass it off to Ben for the exciting Dutch auction round.
Thanks, Jerry. So we have reached that time of the night. It is time for our first Dutch auction question. If you have watched or competed in the national finals of the Level 2 Canadian Geographic Challenge before, you'll be more than familiar with these types of questions. But for the rest of us, I'll do a brief rundown of the rules. So a Dutch auction question is one question that's divided up into 4 parts. A very hard part worth 4 points, a hard part worth 3, a medium part worth 2, and an easy part worth only 1 point. We'll ask the very hard part first, then the hard part, and so on and so forth. When you hear the very hard part, you can choose to either write down your answer or wait to hear the next part of the question. Same for the hard, medium, and easy parts. If you put down the correct answer at the very hard part, you get 4 points. But if you answer wrong, you get 0. So it's always a wager in terms of when you choose to answer. The more clues you choose to hear, the less points you'll get for answering correctly, but the easier the clues will become. So choose carefully. With that said, we'll jump right into our first clue. For 4 points, at 37.5 years, this province has the lowest median age of any province in Canada. So just a reminder, if you think you know it, write down your answer because you get one and only one answer. But if you're unsure, it might be a good strategy to wait to hear the next part of the clue. You sacrifice a point, but it's better than answering wrong here and losing all 4 points. Let's give everyone a few seconds for those who wish to answer. Last chance to answer. And moving on. For 3 points, this province features many unique roadside attractions, including this giant pisanka, or Ukrainian Easter egg, located in its town of Vegreville. Once again, this clue is worth 3 points. Last chance to answer. And for the 2-point clue, this province is one of 2 Canadian provinces that only border one state. The other is New Brunswick. Give everyone who wants to a few seconds to answer. All right, and moving on to our final clue, worth only 1 point. This province's Bow River snakes through its towns of Lake Louise and Banff before flowing through its largest city. So since this is the last clue, this would be, if you haven't answered already, this would be a good time to guess because you can't lose anything by guessing at this point in the clue. I'll give everyone an additional 30 seconds, and then I'll reveal the answer. And the answer was Alberta. So I hope you enjoyed that Dutch auction about Alberta. And fun fact, that Easter egg in Vegreville, NASA actually bought the equipment used to manufacture the panels on the Easter egg and used them to build the space shuttle. So that egg actually helped us build the International Space Station. True story. Anyhow, we are now halfway through the night. So I encourage everyone to take a stretch or a walk around the house, refill your popcorn or your poutine, and we'll be back in 5 minutes for our next round. And also feel free to put your scores in for the first half of the evening. I'll see you in 5 minutes. All right, 30-second warning. All right, so I'll just give everyone a few more seconds to settle back in as I introduce our third round, which is picture, puzzle, potpourri. Say that 5 times fast. So this round is going to be our visual round, meaning that each question will, of course, be accompanied by a picture, map, diagram, or some other visual clue. For this round, it's quite important that you look very closely at the visuals because in pretty much every question in this round, the visual will sort of be the giveaway for the answer, or at least contain key clues that'll help you find the answer. So if it's a map, be sure to read the labels. If it's a photo, look for those small details that could give it away. Since, as we all know, a picture can tell 1,000 words, and in my opinion, a map can tell even more. So make sure you put your video in full screen if you can, and let's jump right in to round 3. Question 1. This 1794 chart, made in part using surveys by Captain James Cook, depicts which strait on Canada's east coast? Once again, you have 30 seconds to answer. Just give everyone a few more seconds to look very closely at that map. All right. Question 2. Name this carnivorous plant that is a common sight in the nutrient-poor soils of Grossmoor National Park and in Newfoundland tourism ads. Moving right along to question 3. If you took a red-eye from Dallas-Fort Worth to Dubai International, you might fly over this Baltic Sea capital that is spread over 14 islands. Once again, we're looking for a capital city on the Baltic Sea. You have 30 seconds. And question 4. Neighborhoods along Toronto's Humber River, including the one pictured here, permanently shrank after 1954 following which natural disaster? And like with the first one, I'll give everyone a little bit more time to study those images closely. Okay, question 5. In 2018, the RCGS sponsored an expedition to map Canada's deepest cave, Basaro Anima. In which province is Basaro Anima located? Question 6. Name the stunning example of a geologic dome that can be found in the Sahara Desert. And question 7. TriMet's Max Light Rail system services which American city, along with its surrounding communities? Here is a big version of the map. And as before, do pay close attention to some of the finer details on this map. Give everyone a couple more seconds to look at the map. And moving on to question 8. Which African nation is associated with these photographs? Moving on now to question 9. Field sketches like this one were often used by this Canadian explorer who charted the Columbia River for the Northwest Company. He is known as Canada's greatest land geographer. And lastly, question 10. Historians believe that, until 1480, the two countries pictured below were connected by a sandy isthmus known as Rama's Bridge. Name both countries. And I'll give everyone a few more seconds before I show the answers for this round. All right, I hope everyone enjoyed the visual round. And Here are your answers. So the first chart depicted Captain Cook's survey of the Strait of Belle Isle, which separates Newfoundland from Labrador. For question 2, the provincial flower of Newfoundland and Labrador is the purple pitcher plant. But if you just put pitcher plant, or you put northern pitcher plant, or turtle socks, or side saddle flower, those are all acceptable answers. It is found across eastern North America, so the pitcher plant has a number of names. For question 3, the Baltic Sea capital was Stockholm. For 4, the natural disaster that caused the damage in the air photos was Hurricane Hazel. Now, technically, at the point it hit the Greater Toronto Area, it was not a hurricane, it was an extratropical storm. So if you answered extratropical storm, Hazel, that is also acceptable. For number 5, Canada's deepest cave is in British Columbia. For 6, that geologic dome has a few names. It's called the Eye of the Sahara, the Eye of Mauritania, or the Richat structure. Any of those answers are acceptable. For question 7, the city depicted on the transit map was Portland, Oregon, and some clues you could have used were the Willamette River, as well as the rose on the TriMet logo. For 8, the country in question was Lesotho. The hat picture in the picture was called a mokorotlo and is featured on Lesotho's current flag. For question 9, David Thompson is Canada's greatest land geographer. And for question 10, the 2 countries in the picture were India and Sri Lanka. So if you haven't already, tally up your scores, put them in the chat if you'd like, and I'll pass it over to Malhar for our next round.
Hi, everybody. Hope you've all been having a good time so far. I'm going to be monitoring the questions for round 4, and this topic is AT in geography. So before I explain how this works, I'm just going to give a bit of a background about this topic, why we chose it. So essentially, these questions are an homage to Mr. Alex Trebek, who was a longtime host of Jeopardy and who passed away last year in November. Mr. Trebek was a lifelong supporter of geography initiatives, competitions, and events, and he actually even became the honorary president of the Royal Canadian Geographical Society. And it's because of Mr. Trebek that Jerry, Ben, and myself, we're all fortunate to have had the opportunity to attend the International Geography Olympiad. So these questions are really a tribute to him from us. So basically how this category is going to work, each question will have a combination of the letters AT in them. So this can appear anywhere in the answer. They don't necessarily have to start with AT or end with AT. They can appear in the middle, really anywhere. So just as an example, if I asked you guys what country is Washington, D.C. the capital, you guys would say the United States, and you have the AT in the States right there. So yeah, hopefully that's all clear for everybody, and we can get started with the round. All right, so question 1. This British overseas territory was devastated by the 1995 eruption of the Soufriere Hills volcano. The eruption destroyed its capital city of Plymouth and displaced almost 2/3 of its population. All right, moving on to question 2. This city was once its country's capital before being replaced in 1998. It still serves as a cultural and commercial hub of the country, with the Central State Museum housing some of the most important artifacts of Central Asia. What is this city? All right, question 3. A team of Christian explorers believe they found Noah's Ark on this mountain in Turkey. You may also recognize it as an iconic symbol of Armenia. All right, question 4. This landlocked monarchy officially changed names in April 2018 to better reflect its name in the country's most prevalent language. What is its new name? Question 5. While this feature is hidden from view for most of its length, its beauty is on clear display in dramatic features such as Diana's Peak, the Vatnajökull ice cap, and the Ponta da Pico. What is this feature's name? Question 6. This island, located at a longitude of 172 degrees east, is considered to be the westernmost part of the United States. It is also America's largest uninhabited island. Question 7. Described as the world's toughest foot race, this 135-mile ultra-marathon in California ends at Mount Whitney. Name the marathon's starting point, fittingly the lowest point in the United States. Question 8. Perhaps the two most famous eruptions in recorded history are Vesuvius in 79 AD and Krakatoa in 1883. What specific type of volcano produced them both? Question 9. This building, opened in 1893, is an iconic part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's easy enough to access by the Dufferin Terrace, but it might cost you a lot to stay the night. All right, and the final question for this round. This capital city, known in German as Pressburg, is only about 50 kilometers away from Vienna, making the two of them one of the closest capital city pairs in the world. All right, and there you go. The answers are up on the screen. You guys can take a few minutes to tally up your scores, and we'll just go through them one by one. The answer to question 1 was the Caribbean territory of Montserrat. The answer to number 2 was Almaty in Kazakhstan. The capital city has been moved to Astana, which was actually renamed to Nur Sultan a couple of years back. The answer to question 3 is Mount Ararat. The answer to question 4 is Eswatini in southern Africa, formerly known as Swaziland. The answer to number 5 is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. So Diana's Peak is located on St. Helena. The ice cap is located in Iceland, and Ponta do Pico is in the Azores Islands. So all of those are located along the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. The answer for question 6, the island, was Attu, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this was the only part of the United States occupied, the only part of the United States occupied during World War II. The answer for number 7 was the Badwater Basin. So that's actually the name of the marathon, the Badwater Marathon, but Badwater Basin is actually located in Death Valley National Park, which also has the AT in there, so we accept that as well. The answer to number 8 was the stratovolcano. The answer to question 9, located in Quebec City, probably the most iconic building there, is the Chateau Frontenac. And then the answer to number 10, the capital city of Slovakia, Bratislava. And both Bratislava and Vienna are located on the Danube River. Perfect. Yep. So just put your scores in the chat. Feel free to talk about them too. All right, and now we're going to be moving on to our last category of the evening, and this is another one of these Dutch auction questions. So this Dutch auction question is actually going to be based around an image, specifically the coat of arms of a particular country. So we'll be providing 4 clues as usual. Each succeeding image will be slightly more zoomed out than the previous one, which will reveal more and more of the coat of arms of the mystery country. Additionally, each picture will have a corresponding clue attached to it as well. And just to refresh your minds about how a Dutch auction question works, it's going to be divided up into 4 parts, a very hard part worth 4 points, a hard part worth 3 points, a medium part worth 2, and an easy part worth 1 point. So we're going to ask the very hard part first, then the hard part, and so on and so forth. So when you hear the very hard part, you can choose to either write down your answer or wait to hear the next part of the question. Same goes for the hard, medium, and easy parts. If you put down the correct answer at the very hard part, you'll get 4 points. But if you answer wrong, you get 0. So it is always a wager when you choose to answer. And the more clues you choose to hear, the less points you'll get for answering correctly, but the easier the clues become. So choose carefully about where you want to guess. And with that said, let's jump right into our first clue. All right, so our first question, worth 4 points. While Canadians know the fleur-de-lis as an iconic symbol of Quebec, the coat of arms of several cities, regions, and this country bear the symbol. So if you know it, then feel free to make a guess. If you're not quite sure yet, maybe wait a little bit for the next few clues. All right, question 2. This is worth 3 points. This country's coat of arms is one of 2 to feature a pomegranate. In this country's most widely spoken language, the word for pomegranate also refers to an historically important city on its southern coast. All right, question 3, worth 2 points. Zooming out a bit, we can see this coat of arms contains the emblem of this country's wealthiest region. That's in the bottom left part of the image. And this region is located in the northeast. In 2017, it very well could have become the newest sovereign nation. All right, and the last question, worth 1 point. Visible in its entirety, this coat of arms contains the Pillars of Hercules that guard the entrance to the Mediterranean, as well as the historic emblems of Aragon, Castile, Catalonia, and Navarre. And the answer to that question was Spain. So hopefully all of you guys were able to get it at some point during the clue. Feel free to write down in the chat where or which clue you were able to get it. And yeah, now that's our final round. So feel free to tally up your scores and put them in, put your combined scores in the chat. Yeah. So that's going to conclude our trivia night for today. And just as one final note, programs like the Canadian Geography Challenge and the International Geography Olympiad are generously supported by the RCGS through donations from geography enthusiasts like you. So please do consider donating to continue funding CanGeo Education's and the RCGS's amazing programs. You can donate by going to rcgs.org/donate, which we'll put in the chat below. We'll put a link to that below. And yeah, thank you all for attending and hope you all enjoyed the event.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.